Hello, friends, listeners, colleagues, my mom and dad, if you're listening to this too, I appreciate you. Welcome back to the Purposeful Marketing Podcast. Aaron, Mary, and James here to break down another topic, which to me is kind of the essence of this show. It's these unanswerable questions, but really these unanswerable questions have impact on our day-to-day, the everyday practitioners. So today we're going to discuss, is anything original in marketing? And what should I do with that question? Before I kind of dive into the topics that we have organized out here, James, Mary, any general thoughts? First blush, what do you think?
I think that this is going to be fun because I think that the one thing that I learned really quickly when I started doing marketing and kind of moved out of soft journalism is like, man, there is a framework for everything. I mean, gosh, people are just so happy to publish. People just want to publish their frameworks so bad. People want you to follow frameworks so bad. People want their process to become the process so badly. So I feel like that's kind of where my mind goes, and I know that that's something that we all wanted to talk about, but that was a shock for me when I started marketing.
Yeah, James, I want to hear from your
What about you,
end
Mary?
because I was really excited for this topic because you are specific to content and copywriting. What do you feel like when you're creating we just worked on a homepage copy project, right? When you're doing that or a case study or a blog post article, are you using a framework too? I would love to hear about it from a writer's perspective.
I think from my personal perspective, I've read many, consumed many as part of our, onboarding and upskilling. We've consumed quite a lot of them. I would think I'm sure the other content team members at Gorilla 76 would concur with that. I feel like I only take what I like and I think about it a lot. I haven't built a framework that I follow to the letter or anything like that. But I definitely am I'm stealing good ideas that I see in some of these. A lot of the time, the stuff that I don't like about it feels like stuff that, okay, I'm thinking of a CXL course, like Momoko Price is talking about conversion copy, and she's really good at talking about it. And, but there's stuff that I'm it seems like this is only here so that you could make it a framework, so that you could put it into an Excel sheet that you could share with people. It's not an organic part of the process, and it's not necessarily something that's helpful to me to think about. I feel like the skill that I've learned is understanding when something is important and when something is this is how one other person turned this into a process for themselves that they use. I don't think that I'm operating as a copywriter on a level where I should have a process where I'm like a machine. I'm just churning out content. I'm not blitzing our clients with content. That's not the kind of stuff that we do. So a lot of that is kind of irrelevant for me. I feel like I've been pretty good at taking what I need to and avoiding the stuff that's turns out is really just mechanics.
Yeah, I think what resonates with me from what you just said, James, is our listeners are, again, individuals who are working on a team right now trying to get to that senior level. And they're consuming a lot of information, right? They're trying to figure out what is original, what is the framework, what is the process. And kind of what you just said, James, is, well, I don't have one. I just do results. I work with a client, I get to the goal. That's really the line we're talking about here. Is in marketing, is anything original? I'm not sure. But what you can start doing is building a framework for yourself. I think why that is important is kind of James and Nuance you're pointing out, is to articulate it to someone else. I think, unfortunately, that's our job as marketers, right? Is we need to explain what we're doing, why we're doing it. And then so that can be pushed up to someone else, probably leadership that's above us as well. I think that is not going to go away, but that doesn't really pinpoint our question about is anything original. Or I'll ask it a different way, and I'll throw it to you, Mary, to kind of give us some commentary. Is, specifically with your marketing strategy and execution, should you imitate or should you originate?
I think you should imitate first and foremost. Probably, arguably for the first maybe 5 to 10 years of your career until imitation is boring you. I still imitate 90% of my strategy. The stuff that's original is the stuff that's client specific. And that's kind of what we talk about from marketing in general. So marketing is a build awareness channel. Sales is that capturing the demand or awareness and turning it into a customer. You can kind of think of marketing strategy in a similar way. Like you're copying first, and then as you get further down the funnel, you're kind of optimizing it for your client or for your customer. If you're an in-house marketer for your company. I don't know. I would argue that nothing I do is truly original. I think I copy almost everything, including the way that I write my personal branding LinkedIn posts every day. I don't think any of those is truly original. The words and the way that they're put together on paper are different and new and specific to me. But the way, to your point, Aaron, the framework in which I write them is definitely imitating. So you have like your hook, your body, and then your conclusion. It's very standard. Or if you're not doing it in like a storytelling way, then it's your hook, your listicle, and what the takeaway is. So it's like, I always have a framework for all of my LinkedIn posts if we're talking about me creating original content. I'd be interested to hear about the frameworks you guys use though too, because I only have it for my LinkedIn posts and for like a strategy I would build for a client. So I'd be interested to hear what you guys use more tactically.
So I'll take that away. Then I'm going to throw a question at you, James, is where my mind goes is really to Dave Gerhardt and his tagline, like, you can't learn B2B marketing in business school. I think that's really a phrase that impacts all of us, which is like, you can't really learn this in school unless you imitate others right now. I think that's why we lean so heavily into copying frameworks and repeating executions, because no one's taught us this stuff. We have to figure out how it works. We have to get results. To work smarter, what we're going to do is copy what we think works now. Now, to unlock growth, to do something different, to really drive change, I think you have to do something original. You have to do something that other marketers are not doing right now. That takes guts, that takes risk. You may not get to that result. I think that's, there's a balance, right, between imitation and origination and pushing yourself to do something new. But I think for you, James, what I kind of wanted to ask you is, I think frameworks really are just guardrails. I know as a writer, like, you do have a process, right? Like, you have your process that you probably partake in every time you write a piece, even if it's not in a detailed spreadsheet that you're going to share with someone else. Do you feel that way?
I think I feel that way to a point. It's like in the same way that my day has a loose process. I do wake up, hopefully. I do often eat around 10:30, 11, a little brunch. If I'm making content, like let's say I'm writing a LinkedIn post for a client. Yeah, I have a pretty standard process for doing that. Only in the loosest way though, like that involves research for 30 minutes, draft copy for 30 minutes, ship it. There's nothing beyond that, because really I think what happens is what you're capable of doing, like the sum total of things that you could produce as a LinkedIn post is so broad and like disparate and variable that I just end up writing the same thing every time. If I had like, you need to be able to do something with a video, or do something with, you know, a link to an article that you read, or do something with a image from an internal graph that, you know, someone could create. I don't know. So I tend to think along those terms, in terms of like imitating versus originating. I think, and where, how you all were saying, like, you kind of have to learn by imitating. I think that's partly true. I think the problem is you shouldn't be prioritizing either. You know, like, it's a good thing to think about, but a lot of times I think what happens in B2B is like, okay, well, we're going to imitate what the industry leader does or did, because we don't know anything about our customers and we don't know how to talk to them. Or you think, well, we need to prioritize being original because we are not reaching people. People aren't responding to what we are saying. Our content needs to be more original. And maybe that's true, but like, people communicate like the same way constantly. I mean, some of the people who have the most, like, if you want to talk about social reach, the most social reach say the same thing over and 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 over again. It's like developing a point of view. That's like the biggest part of it. It's like, you don't necessarily need to be original. You just need to be compelling and have a point of view. I think like those two things are way too often the focus, like where you decide either to be original or to imitate, when in fact you should be comfortable moving fluidly between the two of them. And when you're making high level decisions, it should be based on something like, why are we doing this? What is the goal? What can achieve the goal? Rather than, I think we should be original today because today is Tuesday, and that would be super fun if we were original today. Like, that's, for me, I think sometimes people are making decisions like that. Like, oh gosh, we need to fall back and imitate because we're bogged down, or we don't have the knowledge. It's like, well, you can go get the knowledge. You need to be original if you want to. Whatever you think is going to be best. So that's kind of where I think B2B especially is hairy, and especially in industrial. Our clients, a lot of the people we talk to seem to oscillate really strongly between those two things without thinking about the fact that they're both valuable.
Love that, James. Again, ask the why. That's why we're here. And when you ask the why, you really start to think about that. From the agency side, because all three of us are agency, not in-house, a lot of the time I will hear, what are my competitors doing? If you ask the why, you really want to flip that. Like, what are my customers doing and what do they want? And that's going to lead you to better marketing. I think it's easy to focus on imitation. And one of the questions we had prior to us hitting record is, there's so much marketing advice on LinkedIn. And Mary, you and myself, we also write marketing advice too. But as we're talking, we're kind of saying, maybe you don't want to imitate. You want to start doing the new strategy. Mary, do you have any thoughts on marketing advice on LinkedIn? I'll kind of let you take it where you want, but is that something, again, our listeners, is that something they should look towards to imitate?
As far as marketing advice on LinkedIn, to a certain extent. So there's some really great content creators who talk about frameworks you can use to grow a following or to grow a personal brand. We were talking about frameworks before. I think they're very helpful. Some of the really good ones, like Justin Welch, Emily Brady does a really good one. You have to find your niche. So you have to define your niche audience. Who are you writing for? Why are you writing for them? What do you need to help them with? And why should they care? So speaking to your point, Aaron, you need to know your customers, you need to know your niche, and you write for that niche. So if we're talking about following original versus imitating. Imitate their frameworks, but create original content for your niche audience. That's where I kind of made my inroads. There wasn't a lot of content around industrial marketing, especially for in-house marketers, how they can talk to leadership, how they can push strategies forward, what tactics should they do and how should they do them. So that's how I started. I started with what am I learning as an in-house marketer? How am I applying new marketing strategies, new digital marketing strategies to a very traditional mindset in marketing, which was industrial and manufacturing. So that's where I made my inroads. And, it worked for me because I followed the framework. Now, as far as the advice you should follow on LinkedIn, you have to dig into the person. This is so important because so much marketing advice on LinkedIn might not be applicable to you. I'll give you an example I saw today. Adam Keating, I think his name is. He's the CEO of Colab Software. He did a really great post on product design. So why you need to speed up your product design cycles. This was very specific to engineering. Of course, you could apply this to other disciplines. Speed is a great lever you can pull. You can iterate faster, et cetera, et cetera. You can get to results. Yes, you can apply those, but you have to take a step back and realize he's speaking very specifically to product engineering, making physical things. So yes, while a SaaS company might benefit from something like this, make sure, again, speaking to what we speak about here on purposeful marketing all the time, ask the why, take that step back, make sure this is actually applicable to what you want to do and who you want to speak to.
Well elaborated, Mary. I think that's so important, and it reminds me of the comment we just made about trying to do the why for your customers and not do what your competitors are doing. And if you imitate, which I actually do think there's value in imitating when you're starting your career, is you have to execute on a framework that's going to make you better and understand why they exist. But if you do that, you're going to run into these problems, right? If you imitate, that may not be original to your audience, to your customer. But if you originate, it could be. And I think in that example, it was specifically for the certain type of audience, but we look at these posts, we look at this advice, and we think it will be applied to everything we do. And it's going to be sunshine and rainbows. James, I want your just unfiltered opinion about marketing advice on LinkedIn, if you have anything for us.
I think that people have a lot of good ideas, and I commend a lot of people for sharing them. I think that if you have let's say you have a goal and your goal is, I want to grow my personal follower count by X. I think you can find some probably incredible advice on LinkedIn about doing that. But it's worth then, the second question you ask, so the first question you ask is this advice, do I trust this advice to help me get to my goal? My goal might not have been the same as this other person's goal, but a lot of times you can tell. So this person says, how to grow your follower count by 2,500 people. You're like, sign me the heck up. This is exactly my goal. Well, your next question needs to be why is that my goal? Is this person's advice still fulfilling? Is the way I'm going to get there still aligning with why I want to have 2,500 more followers? Is the way that this person gets there still applicable to the types of followers that I want, the type of engagement I want to have with them? Sometimes the answer is probably yes to those. Sometimes probably no. I think that's kind of just a reiteration of what Mary was saying. I think you have to be picky about what advice you take. But I don't know. I think there's plenty out there that's valuable. I browse LinkedIn, I read through the feed, and when I get on there to message people, and I feel like I learn things. I feel like, again, it's the same thing with the frameworks. I don't find myself grabbing frameworks and using them to produce work. But I do find myself learning from the intuition of why did this person make the framework this way? Like what is gained by thinking about something the way that Momoko thinks about it, or, you know, the way Gary Vee thinks about it. I think LinkedIn is great for kind of getting every single lens, like so many lenses at how do I grow my followers? And if you look at all of them, you look at 10 different answers to that question, you can maybe learn a lot about like, well, what aligns with which of these people align with who I want to be when I have those followers? You know, do I want to be Gary Vee when I have 30,000 followers, or do I want to be a different, you know, person? So yeah, I mean, I feel like the expectation is that I would hate LinkedIn marketing advice. And like in theory, yes, I do, but that's just because I'm not a person that likes getting advice. It's like, I just don't take advice well, you know. It's kind of like, you know, it's like if I tell, like, Mallory's complaining about something, I tell her to calm down. Like, that's not the right thing to do. Like, give someone advice about how to respond to something. No. And it's like, when I read stuff on LinkedIn, I'm thinking, these people don't know that I don't want to hear it, you know? But no, I think there's a ton of good advice out there.
Definitely. I think, you know, Mary, you're the most prolific personal brander of our team here. And I know really what I want to dive into is you get a lot of engagement on the advice that you give. Does that help you? Does that make you feel like you're helping people imitate in the right way? Do you just have any general thoughts about that?
Yeah, that's actually a really good point. I very infrequently look at the engagement that I get on LinkedIn. My major goal is to answer questions that I get from other in-house industrial marketers. That's my niche. That's who I'm talking to. So the engagement doesn't matter to me as much as the quality of the feedback I'm getting from the audience I'm targeting. So when I get in a DM from somebody that says, hey, that was really great advice, thank you so much, like, I have a question about how I apply this to my specific company or my specific role, that's like the best qualitative feedback I can get. So that's when I know I've done something well, and I'll iterate on that. So I iterate more on quality of feedback rather than quantity of feedback.
Yeah, I think that's just important in general for marketing advice, or any content you put out there, is right audience, right time, right quality feedback, so you can take that, learn, and then write new content. Back to the idea of imitation versus origination, I do kind of want us to wrap up, and I'll ask you this first, James, and we'll each take a turn here. Is it the best strategy to just do something different?
I don't know. I think I can imagine some goals that would lead me to say, like, well, man, let's get wild. I think I remember also when I started, there was just so much talk of, because it was during COVID when I started being a marketer, kind of on the back end, talk of like, oh my God, restaurants are open again. Where are trade shows? And then other marketers being like, there will never be trade shows again. And then other marketers being like, here's why you need to ditch the idea of the trade show. And it's like, you simultaneously, when you're consuming all this information, you're hearing all these interesting stories about people that were like, I'm just going to do something totally different. It's like, well, there was like a moment where people had realized that they didn't want this particular thing anymore. But they miss some of that. There's parts of trade shows that are amazing for customers, for companies, regardless of all the drawbacks. And it does make sense to, like, people are so searching for something like that. Give them anything. Like, people would try anything at that point. I'm sure that was a year where more people were attending webinars than ever before. More people were attending, you know, strange events because they were just like, I mean, shit, if I can't go to Vegas and talk to these people, like, I mean, I may as well bill some time, like just getting whatever I can get to fill that. I think there are moments like that when I think it probably behooves you to just say, what can we do that's just so off the charts, different and original, throw everything at the wall and see what sticks kind of situation. But in general, I don't think so. I mean, it didn't make sense for like musicians, listen to music. It's like, everyone knows the best chords are like C, A minor, and E minor. I mean, everyone plays the same ones. It's not a problem. I kind of think like some of the stuff works and everyone's doing it for a reason. And just trying to be different is, again, you're missing the point. You're not asking the right questions if you get to that point.
Totally.
Yeah, I agree with what James said. I think nothing is like truly original. So I'll tell you a story about also COVID during my time as an in-house marketer. Our marketing department and most of our team was very hesitant to take on any risk. So I pitched, we had done this thing called the Spray Technology Seminar. It was an in-person event over 2 days where engineers and maintenance managers primarily, or operations managers, would come in and just learn about spray nozzles, like very technical details. It was like 2 days of very intense talks of spray nozzle engineering. I know you guys are probably super interested in it, but my idea was everyone was doing webinars. You're sitting in on these like 45-minute lectures where you're hearing somebody, drone on about any given subject. So my idea was, hey, let's take the Spray Tech seminar. It was an in-person event. Let's make it a webinar, right? But we're going to have it conversation style. I want 2 engineers on there. I'm the moderator. They're talking about this spray technology topic, and I'm interrupting them as they're talking with questions from the audience. This concept isn't new, but it was very new for my company. It was very new for the vertical we were talking to. No one was doing a webinar in that style or format. So I just made sure to it's almost like pushing the envelope. So maybe you're not being 100% original, to James's point, but you're pushing the envelope in some way. So to your point earlier, Aaron, you have those guardrails in, but how can I innovate? How can I be more creative than the people behind me in those guardrails?
Well broken out by both of you. I think there was very interesting points there. For me to wrap it up for everyone and what we've been discussing, I think there's just 2 layers I want to talk about, which is like, number one, if you want to grow in your career, I think you should start imitating. I did it myself. You kind of heard James and Mary talk about their own experiences. I was on Moz.com reading everything I could about SEO, then doing those executions. And like that helped me understand frameworks, guardrails, and getting better. But then as you grow in your career, I think that's when you have to start thinking about being original. At a certain point, marketing plateaus. That's where you can come in and offer something new. I think with our clients in SaaS, we're trying to help them have sustainable growth over a long term. They have to do something different. They cannot do the same things they've been doing and copy their competitors and copy everyone else in the space. To really, truly be the category leader, they have to be original and do original executions. So just like a lot of things I say, it's a balance, and you probably need to do both. Well, listeners, that's what we got for you today. I appreciate you for listening to kind of these conceptual conversations, and hopefully we're offering you some value that you can actually apply in your day-to-day since you are the practitioner. Give us some feedback. This podcast is now on Apple Podcasts. That's my one plug-in there. And you can also find it on Spotify. But look forward to our next discussion, and have a good one.
Peace.